Hello everyone, I'm Sam and welcome back to my channel. I have finally got rid of my M2, finally, I don't know, well, it's been a long time coming, and I have replaced it with, as you can see behind me, an S4 Avant.
You say I'm wrong, but I think I need it. You think that reason can make me stay? Just wanna feel me, just feel me breathing.
I'm going to do a little walk around the car, explain some of it, and then I'm going to jump in and explain some of my reasoning for the change. Let's have a little look around. As you can see, we have a 2017 S4 Avant this is Navara blue. It's quite a nice blue. I am a big fan of blues on cars, as some of you may know. And having a walk around, now the S4, I did look at RS4s, and I've previously had an RS3 and an S3, but the S4 doesn't have quite the presence of those other two cars. For some reason they haven't given it quite the arches, but makes it a bit more of a svelte shape. Anyway, for me, this was super practical looking around. This car is a V6 turbo petrol. It has recently been replaced by a diesel version. This has got the black styling pack to black everything out. I think it looks quite cool. And then it's 350 horsepower, 370 foot-pounds, 0 to 60, 4.7 seconds or something like that. And a feature I am loving, it's just the ability to open the boot like that. Seems pretty novel, because when with the M2 I was always putting stuff in, and the gap was probably about that size, and you had to lift stuff over, and the amount of times I nearly dropped stuff on the back here. This, you can just open it, chuck all your stuff in, press the button. Now, so many cars have that feature, but just going from a 2 Series to the A4 shape, or S4, has been super great. Now, obviously, we have one of the main points for me about a daily is the interior, and the interior on the S4, same as on the RS4 actually, with the digital display, is just a really nice place to be, and was one of the huge selling points for me over, let's say, the Mercedes, for example. Now, that is the exterior. There's not much to say. It's a bit longer than my M2. And let's jump in, I'll go for a little drive, and I will talk about it a little bit more. Fire it up. It's not the most raucous of startups, but here we are in the car. Now, let's just get moving. So easy. Auto, drive, parking brake, off we go. Got sun in my eyes. Now, interior spec of this car, one of the main things, basically, I spend more time at the moment just sitting on a motorway than I do driving hard down country lanes and stuff like that. And I kind of realised that my garage, my collection of cars, are all quite similar in the sense that they were all really fun cars to drive quite fast on a bit of a road trip and stuff like that. And actually, what's the point in having multiple cars that in theory do exactly the same thing? So I wanted something that was a bit bigger, a bit more comfy, and better on a motorway slog, because that's generally what I find my driving is at the moment when I'm not on track and stuff like that, is just cruising down the motorway, whether it's to a race or something like that, and I wanted something a bit more comfy. Now, I tried out all of the options, not quite all of the options, but a lot of options, a lot of different things. Looked at SUVs, went and drove a Range Rover, loved the Range Rover, haven't heard great things about reliability and stuff like that. At that point, you're sort of admitting that you just want to drive a barge around, and I'm not there for that with the car I drive all the time. So I wanted something in the middle. Started looking at estate cars. I've always loved RS6s, but my experience of RS6s is they are a bit wide in town. And at the moment I live in town, and that's where I spend most of my time when I'm not on the motorway or whatever. So having a car that's just a bit narrower makes quite a big difference. And so I started looking at this class of car. I went and drove the C class, and I've drove the C63. I genuinely thought I was going to love that car because it has the engine, sort of the performance, ticks all the boxes, but something, I don't know, I'm not a Mercedes person at the moment. I went and drove it. I think I don't like the interior. I wanted to drive an S4 Avant like this, and I was interested to have it with the updated interior, you know, the digital dash and all that sort of stuff. I think that was something in the Mercedes, the one I was driving, that it didn't have, and it made it feel like a much older car when you compare it to getting in something like this. But on the way home, I wanted to test drive an S4. It was having the wheels redone. So Audi Finchley Road had RS4, and I went and drove that, and I just looked at it and was like, oh yeah, this is I love Audi estate cars, and specifically RS ones. I took it for a test drive. I loved it, but the main thing was I just realised I love the Audi interiors. I've had a few Audis over the years, then I had the M2, and this interior is such a nice place to be. You may ask, why didn't I buy an RS4 Avant? Well, RS4s have done a weird thing in the last year where they went through the change in legislation halfway through the production, so they stopped production of the RS4, and it then got taken off and has now only got relaunched a week ago, and it now has the OPF filter and all that sort of stuff. So what happened is they made a certain number and then they stopped building it for 6 months, so there weren't very many cars around, and what that did is it held the price up really high. And so you could have owned an RS4 from new, and it would have, if you'd done 10,000 miles in a year, it would have cost you about £8,000 in terms of just price of car. That is quite a small figure if you compare it to other RS models. Like I think I lost more than that in my RS3 in a year. But then if you keep it for more years, that sort of works out a little bit better. So I had this vision, this sort of thought that they're held artificially high. And if you bought one now, the new one was coming out soon, and I just could see that car losing like 15 grand in a year, which I didn't want to do really. And I knew that the S4 had exactly the same interior. Performance-wise, for me, it's my daily driver, and actually 350 horsepower is a lot, and every now and then I go on holiday or something and I drive a rental car, and they normally have like a 1 litre petrol, and it really just resets any performance figures in my head, and I come back and anything feels fast, which is amazing. But this is a genuinely fast car, and it has exactly the same interior as the RS. So most of the time, 95% of the time, it's the same car. It's just the exterior is a little bit, doesn't have quite that chunk, which I did love, but the price difference between the two cars was going to be about £20,000, and I couldn't justify it in the end. So I went and looked at a few S4s, wasn't sure, found one in blue, and bought this car. So this car is 10,000 miles. It's 2017 model. It was about 36,000 pounds, 36, that sort of amount. And that's it really. It's ticked all the boxes, and I am loving the change over the M2. Now, I did have a thought last week when I saw that there was some cheap track days at Rockingham for Mission Motorsport, and I thought, oh, it would be great if I had the M2. You could just take that to a track day, come back, whatever. But other than that, I've done some long journeys in this. I've done a lot of cruising around, stuff in town that I've got to do, and it has proved amazingly comfy. You get in, and the seats I've got the heated massage seats in this car, and you get in, you turn it on, and the side bolsters are adjustable, and they just give you it's almost like the car gives you a little hug when you get in it. It just goes like, which feels really nice. Suspension is, I thought it was really quite soft, not in a bad way, in a good way. And then I realised that my tyre pressures were super low, so I've put them up, and it's definitely firmer. It's still comfy, but it's a little bit firmer. And actually, probably what I might do is drop it down to the lower of the two. When you look at the door of what tyre pressures do you want, it gives you two figures: one for 2 people in the car with no luggage, and one for whatever 4 or 5 with all the luggage. So I may drop it down to the lower of those two and give it a little bit more comfort back. However, other than that, it's 350 horsepower turbocharged V6. It has been replaced by a diesel version engine car, which with a couple of fake exhausts and things like that. And would I like the diesel? No, not really. On a long run, and it would be quite nice to have the diesel economy, and in town it would be quite nice to have the diesel economy. But on the motorway, at the speed most people drive at, you get about 38 mpg. I think if you drove at 70, like on the dot, you'd get a bit more. I haven't tested that. I'm sure you get more. You'd probably get 40 something, which compared to cars I've been used to driving, I think M2 I used to get about 32, something like that. Is actually a noticeable improvement. And then having all the space in the car has been brilliant. Just being able to chuck all my gear in the back if I'm going to the racetrack, just so much stuff, and I've got a little scooter and all those things just fly in there, whereas previously it was difficult getting into that coupe-shaped boot of the M2. But basically, I'm loving all this stuff. Now, interior features, in the refresh, and you'll have seen some people talk about this, it goes to a touchscreen, and most people say they didn't like the touchscreen. Now, I didn't like touchscreens, and I'm just a bit anti-touchscreens, but no particular reason why. I don't know why. But in this car, I use Apple CarPlay all the time, and Apple CarPlay is heavily optimized to being a touchscreen. And having had the car for a month or so now, I actually would like the touchscreen. The touchscreen would be good if you were using Apple CarPlay. Now, one option this car had, which I thought would be a great feature, is the wireless charging from my phone. Now, I've got iPhone X, and that accepts wireless charging. So I thought, I'll just get in the car, put the phone down there, it'll charge. I don't have to do anything. It'll be out of the way. I won't play with it, all that sort of stuff. But in reality, this version of Apple CarPlay, and I feel like I have been in some that are not like this, you have to plug it in with a USB cable. So if you're the sort of person that uses Apple CarPlay, that as an option, the wireless charging, is completely pointless because your phone has to be plugged in to use Apple CarPlay. So I get it in the car, put this cable in, plug it in, and job done. I don't have the keyless entry, and nowadays I think that's quite a good thing. It doesn't bother me locking and unlocking the car, and it means it's a lot harder to steal. So that's about it, really. Have a little look around the interior. Something I've noticed this car versus the M2 is this is a much bigger car. So it's a little bit wider. I don't think it's that much wider, so the width doesn't really affect me that much. But the length, it's probably an extra that much longer. And just parking, it is noticeable. You have a little bit less space, but I've sort of got used to it, and therefore I'm okay with it. But I'm very happy with it so far. It's much comfier. It's made me think about the other cars in the garage and how maybe I should get rid of something or swap it out or that sort of thing, because having cars that do different jobs is better than having a lot of cars that do the same job. I'd rather have, I'm going to do a long motorway ride, let's get in this car because it's comfy, rather than I could take any of them and they're all similar. So there we go. There are my thoughts on my new Audi S4 Avant, or new to me. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy that, and I will do some more stuff in depth later on.